say, a different aspect of the rounds of existence, and it starts talking a little bit about conception. Conception in the womb, what it takes to have that conception. There has to be three things. There has to be the woman has to be in the right season. There has to be a man, and there has to be a consciousness that enters. In one of the commentaries, this is called the Dispeller of Delusion. It talks about the unsatisfactoriness of being in the womb. And a lot of people have this idea that it's such a great thing. But I wanted to read this to you just to give you an idea of the kind of suffering that occurs. Now, meaning suffering in birth should be understood. For this birth is not itself suffering, but being the basis in arising suffering. This is called suffering. Rooted in descent into the womb and so on. In the mother's womb, he is not inside a blue or red or white lotus, etc. But on the contrary, like a worm in rotting flesh, a cesspool, etc. He's born in a part of the body that's below the receptacle of undigested food and above the receptacle for digested food. Between the belly lining and the backbone, which is very cramped, quite dark, pervaded by supremely putrid drafts of impurity. It has a lot of bad odors and is exceptionally loathsome.
Who can smell?
And on being reborn there for 10 months, he undergoes excessive suffering, being cooked like a pudding in a bag by the heat produced by the mother's womb, and steamed like a dumpling of dough, with no bending or stretching. But when the mother suddenly stumbles or moves or sits down or gets up or turns around, there's extreme suffering that the baby undergoes by being dragged back and forth and jolted up and down, like a kid fallen from the hands of a drunkard, like a snake's young fallen from the hands of a snake charmer. Also the sharp pain he undergoes as he appears in the cold hells, when his mother drinks cold water. As though deluged by a rain of embers when she swallows hot rice gruel or rice. As though coming to the torture of lye pickling when she swallows what is salt or acid, etc. So this gives you an idea of it's not that great a thing to be reborn in a womb. And the reason that I'm bringing it up is because there is a lot of suffering that does occur for a baby. They hear sounds that are amazing. They hear all kinds of moans and groans of the body. They hear sounds outside of the body, and some of those sounds can be quite nasty, sudden. All of a sudden there's this loud bang or loud music or something like that. At the time of birth, they get forced into this little area, and the body is rejecting them. Now they've been in the womb for a long time, and this is a reasonably safe place. And all of a sudden it's rejecting them, and it's squeezing in on them, and it's forcing them to leave. And that's really traumatic. It's very heavy. When they get out of the womb, their senses are very, very acute. The slightest little noises can be a big shock. Quite often, you go into the hospitals, they have bright lights, the baby is blinded by these lights because they've been in the dark for a long time. They have sounds that are amazing, that shock them. They come from this nice warm place and they're put in air conditioning. And one of the first experiences they have is somebody sticking their finger in their mouth to clear their mouth and then slapping them to make them cry. Now, if that's not suffering, I don't know what is. But we have this idea that, oh, isn't it neat? Have a little baby like this. I had one of my first teachers, had been a monk for a couple of years in Sri Lanka, and he just came back to America as a monk, and somebody took him to see this new baby, just born, maybe 1 or 2 days old. And he went to look at this new baby, and they showed him the new baby, and the new baby was a little hungry and starting to make sucking motions with the mouth, and he looked at that and he got really revolted at the craving that occurs. Everybody can look at that in a way and say, oh, the baby's hungry, isn't that neat? But the baby is suffering at that time. And the baby has very strong desires at that time. And they're not able to see this. If those desires aren't met, they suffer a lot, and they cry a lot. They do all kinds of things because they don't understand what's happening to them. So being reborn in the womb, it's better not to be. It's better to work in this lifetime so that you can overcome the craving and overcome the clinging and have a mind that's pure, that's free from suffering of all different kinds. And the way that you get that kind of mind is by realizing and experiencing dependent origination. That's the way that you overcome all of these kinds of problems of being reborn again.